everybody. How y'all doing today? Oh, give it a little bit of energy. It's day 4 of the HollyShorts Film Festival. All right, so we're about to start our first panel of day 3 of the panels here, and it's called Accessing Institutional Finance, moderated by the great Eric Connor here. When we get a chance when we get a chance to get to the Q&A, please do not shout out any questions. We want to make sure that all the questions are heard by the people who will be watching this audience as well. So when Eric does give us a chance to have you ask a question, wait for the microphone to come over to you, ask the question. We want to keep it to one question per person because we want to make sure that we have enough time for the panel and also stands just asking questions. So once again, welcome to day 3, Accessing Institutional Finance with Eric Connor.
All right, thank you. And another woo. I feel seen. Thank you so much for that. So, not just finance. It's not just a panel on finance, right? So by the end of this, all of them have promised me they're gonna make sure you all know how to access it, how to get your hands on it, right in 1 hour. It's pretty easy to do. Or maybe you'll just hear from them about how they've managed to go from a project to another project and have 10 more in the pot getting ready to boil. So definitely don't be shy about asking questions. We'll walk through. We'll have them introduce themselves, talk about the work they've done. But I would love for you guys to also, of course, share it. So before we do that, my name officially is Eric Connor. I have been connected with HollyShorts for almost a decade now. We were talking about the early days of HollyShorts, and it's been so wonderful to watch this festival grow and expand, become Oscar qualifying, which is pretty cool. So I'm thrilled to always be working with these guys. So Daniel, Thea, the whole staff of HollyShorts, thank you guys so much. You guys really do care about the filmmakers and the power of art. And 21 years just went by in a blink. You're now legally old enough to drink. So I'm proud of you, HollyShorts, especially since we're sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon is one of our sponsors, which, yeah, hold for applause, I know. But I am also part of the Burbank Cultural Arts Commission and on the board for the Burbank International Film Festival, as well as I teach over at New York Film Academy and produced a documentary called Other Voices. So I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to listen to them. So if you'd be kind enough, we'll do the whisper down the lane. Of course, say your name, who you're connected with, and then also always like beginning with the beginning. What first got you into our wonderful industry of entertainment? So we'll start with you two on the end there because they do work together.
If you can't tell with how we didn't talk about what we were going to wear, and we're both in some sort of a dress. But I'm Indiana Underhelm, one of the co-founders of CFA Institute, which specializes in, Kevin, which specializes in education and community building for emerging filmmakers, both domestically and internationally. We've been running this nonprofit for about 3 years now. So you're all invited to our 3rd-year anniversary party at our studio. That's a promise.
Next month.
But to make you roll your eyes at me, I got into film because I was named after Indiana Jones. So I watched a lot of movies growing up. And I watched Tree of Life when I was 15 and then wanted to figure out how to become Terrence Malick. So instead now I'm also figuring out how to do that, but also figuring out how to get you all to do that. And we're very excited to talk about funding opportunities, which is something I'm very passionate about for independent filmmakers specifically.
And I am Haley Royal, also co-founder of Cinematography for Actors. She told you what it was. Also, I'm very passionate about getting everyone. This particularly is exciting because in the last couple of years, I've really learned a lot about some of the financial facing programs that we have. So I'm very proud that I know a lot about that now. The way that I got into the industry, I was a cheerleader when I was in high school, and one summer a college film I was shooting at my high school, they needed background. So I wore my little uniform to school during the summer and was a background actor. And I couldn't believe that they just had all the candy out on a table that I could eat. So I got into it for crafty, and here I am.
And just so you know, there's a fair amount of gummy worms out there, apparently. So
she's off sugar now.
Yeah.
Literally, she's off sugar now.
It was
For
a
that reason.
problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't until just for her. It's for you guys as well. There's gummy worms. You've all learned that. right down the line here. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
My name is DJ Jang. I'm the co-founder of Giant Leap Media Ventures. We're a equity film fund, very much a venture capital structure, how we set up. And yeah, so how do I get to a producing track? I think started from high school. We had a film TV program and just kind of fell in love with it. And yeah, so I've been doing all the other P titles ever since for 15 years, and the last of the EPs, which is where I'm doing these days. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Rufus Parker. I have my own production company, P2 Films, and so far I produced and released 5 feature movies. How I got into entertainment, I had a management consulting background from Deloitte. You know, so when you work for big companies, they own your life. You don't have any personal life at all. So one day I got up in the morning, I decided I quit. So I quit. Then I don't know what to do. So then I was thinking about it. I really want to do what I really like about it in my life, like something passion. So I love cinemas all the time. I watched a lot of international movies. So I decided to produce the movie. That's it.
All right. And I'm curious, just with our audience here, how many of you are filmmakers or writers, let's say, who have project? Oh, fantastic. And have stuff playing here at the festival? It was all of it. So do you have stuff playing in the festival? Yes, you do. Great. So it's a lot of filmmakers here, a lot of writers. So I think it's always get a sense of like, all right, well, what am I going to do next? The number one question you're asked, I think, at film festivals, besides where's the bar? Um, so you guys know where the bar is. So let's talk about the what to do next. So for you guys, let's say project comes across your digital or actual desk that you're really excited about. Maybe doesn't have much attachments to it just yet. Um, Walk us through a little bit, maybe the progress you go through, the process you go through, or process, as I believe you say up in Canada, of how you maybe then would try to find some of the finance that you need in order to get something to actually achieve liftoff. We could start down there again. We'll change it up, I promise.
Yeah,
So
definitely. So we are. I told him I could speak to a lot of the institutional financing just from conversations we've had and what we're looking at in terms of co-production and cash rebates and stuff like that. However, Haley and I come from nonprofits. So CFA Institute's a nonprofit. So we focus on fiscal sponsorship. So we're working with filmmakers from the very beginning all the way to post if they need additional funding in post, or hey, I'm just starting to try and finance this. So we work from they probably are more of an investor route. We're more of a donor route. And so our nonprofit, Fiscal Sponsorship, if you haven't done it, allows us as a 501c3 to take on your projects under us to allow you to have tax deductible donations and grant support, as well as access people who work at large organizations like, Google, Facebook, or anyone that has a matching grant or matching fund so that you can double or triple the amount that you're able to raise. This is separate than crowdfunding. So when a project comes across our physical desks and virtual desks, we are evaluating the type of projects that where they're kind of at. So in the pipeline from pre to post, how much they're looking to raise, their distribution strategy. But it's less on who do you have attached and how can we sell this, and it's more how do we get you set up for success in terms of donations and your fundraising campaign for donors specifically.
As well as how does that project align with the mission of our nonprofit? Every nonprofit that is a fiscal sponsor, the projects they take on have to be advancing the mission that they already have.
So it just can't be, we don't do music videos, we don't do experimental, but we do a bit of everything else. But we do documentary and narrative as well.
So in terms of that, when you say looking for grants and you guys, is it along the lines of like a seed and spark in terms of
No,
it's different than that? Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
On the front end, the donor facing, the investor facing side, it looks very similar. There's a lot of donation links that are sent around. There's a lot of approaching people and saying, hey, friends and family, I'm doing this project. I would love your support. However, on the back end, on the admin side, it's different from crowdfunding because everyone who is donating money is actually a donor and they receive from the nonprofit a tax receipt that says they donated to charity. So then up to 100% of their donation becomes a tax write-off.
Yeah, versus crowdfunding does not incentivize your donors. So they're just helping you, but they're not getting anything in return except maybe like a DVD or a poster or whatever you kind of give them. But this actually is like a tax write-off. So you can approach people that maybe have stocks that they don't want to pay tax on, that you could transfer over to us, checks, wire transfers, things like that, and they get a tax receipt they can write off.
So it feels like you guys had to almost like get a graduate level education in finance, like from day one.
I'm still waiting for it in the mail. I do believe that all filmmakers and founders of companies should be getting honorary degrees because we're having to teach ourselves everything all the time. Yeah.
Right. And it's constantly changing,
Yes.
right? So as far as then for yourself, and again, it's obviously very different when it's a nonprofit versus, I hope, for profit. So a project comes across your desk, like what would, and again, you're excited about it. Maybe it does not have much attachment. Maybe it's a relatively new writer or a new director. What would be like your first best steps?
Yeah, so I think when project comes to us, usually they're pretty well packaged. Sometimes they're missing a few pieces there. And with our fund, we're one of the few SEC registered fund. So I think commerciality and to ensure there's a return on investment is one of the key things we have to ensure. That's what we pitch our investors that join the fund to begin with. So with that being said, the only way to really ensure that is that it's a good film is made. I always say it's a lot easier to sell a good film than one that's not. So that's something you got to evaluate. The script is always the first thing. Is the script ready? A lot of times they're not. So a lot of times they're very rushed. And I think we see a lot of that even in movies that's made in theaters these days. So that's box number one. And my business partner, Nick Erickson, he's AFI producing as well. So we always tell people that we can do as much as the P part of the EP as possible if their producing team is not strong enough to put this film together in terms of packaging and everything else. Of course, we prefer not to do all the legworks on those things. So we sometimes give notes, but rare. It depends on the subject matter and depend on the script, how much we gravitate towards, how much we believe into it. I think from the producing role, it's like you don't spend any time until you're absolutely believing in something and see something that you can push through. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I was going to ask about when you say a script is ready. So are you talking then creatively? Are you talking more on the financial side or combination therein?
Yeah. When I say a script is ready, is not definitely on the creative side, and then it's really up to the producer. I think finding a good lead producer is very, very important. All the good films are produced by producers, and that's same as all the bad films too. So it's so important. I see a lot of really good creative projects, script wise, that are just not in the right producer's hand, and they're never get made. Like I see a lot of them, and they're great stories. It's going to be a great film. I can see that in my head, but they're just not in the right hands, and those people are not able to deliver that, whether it be in the packaging, the financial plan, putting the finance structure, and all aspect of it. And unfortunately, that's I want to say at least 30% of things I see out there has those potentials and never get there. Yeah.
So on that end, when you join up with a project that already has a number of attachments, it sounds like maybe some of your job is undoing some of the elements that might be already tied up and a little bit, dare I say, messy.
Yeah. I mean, we try to like look at who's producing and who's directing. Director is very important, and to deliver, the script. And we try not to put our hands into it as financiers. Like that's something people usually have a bad taste about, with financing people going there and mingling with creatives. So we're like usually very hands off. As I said, like we can go as much hands on as needed. Like most of the case, fortunately so far, I've been working with some really good creative people that they pretty much take care of all those aspects on their own, very minor input from us. But there are projects out there that we're currently looking at that we've been following for a couple of years, just not in the right hands, and we're just kind of waiting to see how we can help the filmmakers get that film done in some different way than what they have right now. But it's yeah.
But when I think also too, what you're saying there, like the sort of attitude sometimes you have to swim upstream against the notion of, oh, you're in finance, you're not creative, you're a producer, just produce. What producing is creative. So many times, creative solutions that a director might just be too entrenched to see. Not that they're not able to see it, they're just focused on the thousand other things. So, I think in terms of financing and being creative in financing, especially sounds like what you guys were talking about with like finding the right grants for the right project. I mean, it does take creativity to sort of find those marriages, if you will, or partnerships that are going to work, that aren't going to get in the way of all the other partnerships as well. Especially nowadays, of course, it's like making sure we're walking lightly amongst the fields as things keep changing. How about for yourself? And again, you come from a very different background, it sounds like, at Deloitte. So then you go from a very well run company to Hollywood, where not every project is super well run.
I want to be a role model for everybody who doesn't know cinema, how to make a movie and successful. So that way, I'm a little bit different. I don't go for packaging. I like to own the IP, so I always look for the script. So everybody else, like director or actors, want to be my choice. The reason I do a lot of homework, which actor I want to bring in, what value they have internationally and domestic, what is my budget. So once I have the script, I attach the director and raise the money and attach the actors and produce the movie and also focused on the distribution. So far, the only one movie I did Under the Silver Lake with Andrew Garfield and David Robert Mitchell because I love David Robert Mitchell. And after it follows, I really want to work with him. So CA packaged it. So after they packaged, so I involved to producing the movie. All other movies I did right from scratch. So that's a little bit different, it's everybody's different style, but I want to have my own freedom to protect the investors money, because so far I never done any institutional funding. I always go angel investors. So when you go to the angel investors, so you have to treat the money like your money. So how do I protect their money? So how mitigate the risk? So that's way, if I don't have the full control of the project, I cannot mitigate the risk. So that's why it was a little bit different.
And for the sake of everyone here, could you also define and talk a little bit about what an angel investor does, how you utilize them?
So angel investors, this is my personal opinion and thought, like don't overpromise to them. If you make a horror, don't take Get Out as an example. $5 million hit $375 million. You go with what budget you have and see a minimum theatrical in last 2 years, how much they recouped. So your example has to be very conservative number, and you have to tell the truth, like, hey, we try to do recoup all the money. That's our main objective. Maybe we'll do 20 to 40% profit, but you do the breakup of what is your domestic, what is your digital domestic, what is the international. If we can, you can give a breakdown by countries. um, I learned last 2 weeks in Malaysia and Indonesia, horror is the best. And I found six Malaysian movie under $600,000. They tripled. 600 collected $12 million. So you need to figure out, and Germany does really good on horror too. So that way, and what area you have specific genre works, then see how much market value you have. So that's the best approach you have to do. And anytime you meet an angel investors, never ever ask the first time the money, because nobody is going to write a check without knowing you, who you are. So you have to make them comfortable. Just talk about you, what you have done. Don't talk about money. Talk about the industry, how beautiful industry it is, how you do the main thing is, risk mitigation, and you have to give certain example and let them know you. Then you follow up. Hey, I have a project. You're very interested. I want to explain to you how it works. So that way they feel comfortable. The very first time you hand it them, they will run away.
Yeah, maybe like shake a hand before you put a hand out.
Can I add something to that conversation? Because I think it's a really interesting conversation. Like, I think when a lot of people get into film, they hear like it's who you know, and everyone's like, well, fuck you. Like, I don't know anyone. I'm trying to figure it out. And like, and then like we get into nepotism conversations. But I think what it really means, and, we all have our own network, and relationships are really the key to success here. So whether it's you're going to Tech Week and you're meeting angel investors or people with VC funds, where Haley and I really truly believe that independent film is only going to be financed by VCs and angel investors in the future, like 100%. That's the only people that are going to keep it alive, because we're getting grant cuts. Consistently throughout the states, but when you're meeting with VCs and angel investors, they don't care about they know the tax credits, they know the rebates. They don't want you to pitch them on, well, we're going to be shooting in South Carolina and we're going to get a 30 or 40% cash rebate, and so you'll be paid back first and all that. Like, they don't care. They want the relationship, they want the conversation to understand, like, are you someone good to work with, right? Like, a bank is going to look at bank statements, they're going to look at like your financials, and then they're going to give you a loan with a certain percentage basis based on how risky you are. A VC or an angel investor is going to do the same thing, but it's going to be from a relationship perspective, and then you're going to get the financials in there for their team to actually do a background check on that instead of them specifically. So you really want to be thinking about it when you're pitching these people. It's really true. The relationship is everything, and the more types of relationships you can diversify so that people know each other within that world and know you within that world, really grounds that risk and that idea of how much they're willing to invest in you.
And one more thing I want to add on that, it's your commitment. I just want to give an example. The last movie I did about human trafficking on sweatshops, based on a true story, it's called City of Dreams. So I finished the movie in 2023, but nobody wants to distribute the movie because it's a 12 million kids so far kidnapped in America. It's a $50 billion business every year, and nobody knows about it. So I'm showing the dark side of America. So it's very political. So every studio rejected. Then I organically wanted to, market my movie. So then through my contact, before that, there is a movie. I know everybody heard Sound of Freedom. So there's a producers from Miami. Through my contact, I had a Zoom call on Thursday evening, 6 o'clock, and they told, okay, can we watch the movie? I said, yeah, when? Tomorrow. Oh, really? You're in LA? No problem. I will figure it out. So I immediately took a red-eye flight. I landed at 6:30 in the morning. At 1 o'clock, I showed the movie. So they were very, very shocked. So that shows how committed you are, you know. Then, then, then I spent 12 hours after watching the movie. Then they asked me to extend one more day. We have another, get together. Maybe I'll introduce to a few more people. I extended on Saturday, and next day I got a $3 million on PNA. So that's the commitment you have to show. That's very, very important.
So it's like they're putting the money not just in the film, but to you and to you guys as producers, as the face of the project.
Because the investors, they are not movie savvy. They do multiple different. They may be in real estate. They may be in different, industry. They don't understand how the movie works. So they are believing you. They are trusting you. What you are telling them. So that is very important. So you are the branding for whatever the movie you're doing. So you have to be the best brand, like an Apple.
Actually, working off that, I was thinking for you, DJ, is there one or two projects you could think of if you've worked on where maybe it even looked like getting the financing would be incredibly difficult, and then, oh my gosh, it actually happened, and the movie came together. So, in other words, a success story.
Yeah, I mean, just also, by the way, like producer like him is kind of rare in terms of like protecting the investors. That's the problem with the angel side, and most people, as I said, most of them are not from this field, and most producers just burn these angel investors out there, and that's kind of the problem why money is so hard to find because most people got burned. The sucker born every minute thing is all the suckers out, and that's why a lot of there's more like I guess more institutional stuff's coming out because a lot of these investors can't trust any film people. They're like, hey, you guys mitigate all the risk. We put all our money in your pile. You deal with it, and because we don't want to hear any more pitches. So that's like there's more and more institutional stuff, but like producer like that is rare. Like I had to say, but going back to your original question, yeah, I mean, I think the one that we did called Our Hero Balthazar that premiered at Tribeca in June. That was a film that it's a tricky film. The risk on that was higher. It's a satire, so on script on paper, a lot of the thing doesn't really quite come out, and it is Oscar's first debut feature. Although he's a veteran producer, he produced all the Safdie brother movies, Good Times and Uncut Gem, but this is his first feature, and the fundraising for that was incredibly hard journey for him, and it didn't quite fit our mandate initially on what the scope of the film and everything is. And he's friends with my business partner, the relationships, and so my business partner was trying convinced, like, hey, this is something we probably should do, but we got to accept, assess the risk and go from there. And we believe like we're it just didn't quite fit us immediately. So we talked to Oscars like, hey, you a veteran producer, you know a lot of people around you. Why don't you try to fundraise as much as possible and see where you land? Like if in the end you really do need the money, you're really in a jam, we can talk about it. We probably can help you out in some ways. So he kind of he's like thanks for believing in the film. I was like, I think it's going to be a good movie, but and so he went ahead and gathered like bootstrap as much as possible from his network, and then actually put a bunch of money on like multiple credit cards, and he just like made the movie. And because we're busy, I'm checking, and when and after a while, he's like, hey, that movie I pitched you like a little while back? It's like I made a cut. You guys want to see it? And I was like, sure. And then so he sent us a screener link, and Nick and I watched it together, and then we're like, oh, like this guy did it. Like this is a really good movie. Like there's a fine line that he has to hit to make this good, and he did it. And then we're like, okay, amazing, congrats. What do you need? And he's like, well, I need to pay back my debt, like our debt, and I need more money for posts. And then we're like, all right, how much do you need? And then we wrote a check with that aspect of things. So yeah, so that's like basically he's super committed in a way to get that done. And yeah, I mean, yeah. So that was an interesting way of getting that film made. The first one we did was in Australia. We Buried the Dead. That one had Daisy Ridley attached to that one, and that was still hard for fundraising for them, and a lot of the equity investor fall through for a period of time. But one of the biggest saving grace on that is which unfortunately we don't have this in the U.S. is in Australia. There's so much funding from the government, and they were able to get almost 55% of the budget from Australia. So really mitigate a lot of the risks, that exposure for equity investors. So and that's something that we jumped on board eventually, especially after Daisy's pre-sale numbers was pretty incredible in Europe. So yeah, so there's those two things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to jump off
Yes.
of this a little bit.
I did the same gesture. I went, we have something to say about this. Yeah.
Jump away.
Something that is really cool that we have seen a lot of recently as far as access is that money likes to see that you will do it anyway without it. So we've had a number of projects that they go out, they're looking for money, they're looking for donations, and it just seems like there's really no interest. But if they just cut anything together, just do a little bit of it, and then you show that, it just there's so much more confidence that comes with that.
Are you talking like a sizzle reel, or talking more like a finished like scene opening 10 minutes? or
Yeah.
either?
Either.
Any.
Either.
I mean, it really yeah.
Something to show that you are going to do it anyway.
Makes it tangible.
But
and
do not go into credit card debt. Don't follow like this advice is fantastic in terms of like show us what you can do, build the trust. Once again, it's not as risky because you're showing I can do it. That's why it's like sure, it's maybe the opening scene or maybe it's a teaser or maybe you've just honestly run and gunned it guerrilla style and now you're bringing it to financing being like let's do it again but with more money. But do not refinance homes. Do not use like your home as collateral. Do not use jewelry that you've inherited from your grandmother's collateral or art that your family has or anything. But like, and don't go into credit card debt. But it's cool that they came to you obviously with
Yeah.
that.
Use what you have access
Yes.
to
Yeah.
show that you're going to
Yeah.
tell that story.
I think
regardless.
also I guess depending on how committed they are and how much they believe in their idea, right?
No.
Like well, Justin Lin's like first film, Better Luck Tomorrow, he put that all down on his credit card. He did it for $200K, and he knew that was going to be a movie that's going to get him somewhere, and it did. So I mean, obviously,
Do not
rare
go
cases.
into debt and like filmmakers need to be paid for their work or like but use the resources you have. I just think we need to get out of the mindset that like independent filmmakers have to impress people with money by using the little money they have and going into debt and then rooting their personal credit score because of it because like if you had said no he would still be in debt and he wouldn't be able to like pay that back and then eventually maybe he'd have to figure that out. But I just don't think that's a rule of thumb. Like if you can afford to it with like the credit card limit and someone's going to back you like do it. But maybe maybe we don't do that.
But a lot of the time you don't have to do that because there are organizations like ours that have a lot of gear that you can borrow.
Use our cameras, use our lenses.
Our
that's
resources to go ahead and shoot
Yeah.
the thing anyway, and then you can find the money and do it.
But like I just think yes, totally. If you have the ability to have multiple credit cards and like I have a relationship with you, great. But like don't go and open credit cards and then put like all of that on 5 credit cards,
But
and then claim bankruptcy a year
Don't
later.
mortgage your
because it might not be a better tomorrow if you go into credit.
Hey.
Say thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be here all day.
Yes.
I do want to open it up to you guys in one moment here, but with the question of grants, and you guys brought this up a little bit. What kind of grants would you guys go after? I'm sure it's a very wide range. So I assume it's not a short list. But the second part of that question, whatever you're comfortable talking about,
Sure.
How's it changed in 2025?
There's a lot of worries, specifically around DEI wording, because a lot of grants are either funded by the government or private, investors are great or private donors. Sorry. But when it's big government grants, there's a lot of worry around where's that grant money going to go and if they immediately have to remove words and my words have been used in this 40-page grant document, am I automatically, rejected? So I think there's a lot of just worry within filmmakers right now, which is totally accurate and I mean totally allowed. And warranted. But in terms of grants, it's really a difference between narrative and documentary. Documentary, there are thousands of grants you can go to. And the biggest thing I would recommend is looking outside of the box. So if you are, look at the themes that you have and then break those themes into how can I work with companies that might want to donate to be a part of the charitable good? Or if there are grants within, like if you have a character based in Maine, maybe you go to like the Maine Arts Council, or you go specifically domestic to where your subjects are based. Look at the background and representation of who you've attached for your crew, and follow grants like that. It's hard because they're so competitive. So when you can start to look outside of the box as to like who can I work with, like I'm producing a documentary on Lumberjills, which is axe women, and like hot saw, chainsaw, axe throwing, and there's like these incredible group of athletes that travel around the world and are fantastic, and they represent anyway, we can talk about it. But one of the things we went to is Steel, which is in Home Depot, is the manufacturer and sponsor of a lot of these lumber like competitions, and so we went to Steel and we went to Home Depot and we said, hey, can you do a donation through, fiscal sponsorship? And Steel gave us money for it because they know that their name's going to be all over it. And if they can also show that like we support, women in this evolution of the sport, like that's something that's good for them. So you need to think outside of the the box. In terms of narrative, it gets a lot more challenging. There are, I think creative capital grant, you have to apply as an individual for that. I think you can apply as just an artist for that, meaning you can apply with a narrative project. The National Endowment of the Humanities is really hard to apply to. You can do narrative, but they like, doc footage within there, so archival. So there's ways of getting around it. If you can find a way to have documentary, like specific, like really referencing something in real life, then you can kind of edge your application that way, but it's very difficult.
I do have an example of narrative that managed to do this, combing your story for any kind of cause or any kind of, connection you can make to a for-profit or even an organization. Someone who was here last year, actually, we met, and I don't know if I have the exact details correct, but I do know that it was a narrative project about a robot. The robot had a physical disability, and he was able to partner with a
Lukey and the lights.
Yeah, Toby Cochran. Yeah,
Toby, yep.
Who will be part of the 445 panel.
Awesome.
Amazing.
He's
Coming out
sweet.
there.
He's
So
awesome.
that is a success story of someone who really thought like about the themes that could connect them to another organization. So it's outside the box, because there are arts grants, yes, there are filmmaker grants, but every filmmaker is going to be trying to get that grant. If you can go for other kinds of funding from other kinds of organizations as well, there's success there.
And that's kind of what DJ touched on in terms of co-productions with other countries, because we're just talking about the States, but a huge thing, and we were talking about this outside, is the US is really one of the only countries that doesn't provide funding for artists in the same way that other countries do. And so co-production agreements, and the US doesn't have a ton of treaties, but you can work with other countries like Canada and stuff who do. And a lot of countries will finance independent cinema because they believe that film is a part of culture, which it is. The States doesn't have that same, lens through it. But that's like the Australia thing. It's fantastic. And that exists in a ton of countries. France is a huge proponent of that. You were talking about Germany as well. And so it's really working with a lot of those places. And then I think the Middle East is also huge on that right now.
I used to go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi every quarter. Abu Dhabi has a phenomenal tax credit. So by paper, they say 40%. They're willing to go up to 50% too. So it's a great
And
tax.
Qatar as well with the Doha Film Institute is fantastic. Saudi is obviously trying to get all the money there too.
Saudi is too much political,
Yes,
but
that's
Abu
correct.
Dhabi-
Yes, yeah.
Strings attached to that money. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then of course, two of you lived in Canada, at least two of you. CanCon, Canadian Content.
Oh yeah.
And one of my friends made a film up there, and I think the requirement was he's from Canada, he's from Montreal, and I think he could have a lead actor that was not Canadian, but then the secondary lead had to be Canadian. In his case, it was mostly a one-person film, so it worked out perfectly. And even his composer was Canadian. I mean, he went it all in.
I'm shooting a pilot next week in Canada that got funding from the Bell Fund, which gave my director, I think it's just above 100,000 Canadian to shoot a proof of concept that then automatically gets pitched to streaming services there, and then it's on the highest part of the list to then get picked up as a full series. And they fund the pilot so you can show them what you do.
So practice this, y'all. The last letter of the alphabet is Z, not C. All right.
Fun Canadian humor. Love it.
Yes.
I just want to add that Australia, since March of this year, they lifted the director requirement, so you don't have to be an Australian director to access the funding there. So, so that's pretty much good for everybody.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And then sometimes some other countries, basically you had to have a local producer and all that can help you access some of the grants, and or I don't know if you have descent from other countries. I know the Polish Institute has grants over there, especially for women directors. But I think there got to be some Polish
Lineage.
something involved. Yes, but you can look into it. There's a lot of Spain's 50% rebate on in Canary Island and Basque Country for filming productions, and
that's why relationships are so important. Once again, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, let me open up to you guys. We have a microphone right here. The microphone will come to you, I believe, right there, gentlemen.
Hi, y'all. This is so helpful.
Joelle.
Hi, good to see you again. So I used to work in venture capital. So I was an associate at a healthcare IT fund, and look at me now. But I'm very familiar with like the funding world, and I know how much all the different like axes of things that you look at. So I would love to hear from all of you beyond the script, assuming the script's in a good place. What are there any other like metrics or like other boxes that you check off? Like are there like frameworks that you're looking at? Like what are the less like squishy things or is it all squishy?
Love that question.
BC guy. You start.
Okay, sure. Uh, yeah, script, producer, director. What I call it the initial above the line packaging, very important. Like, well, initially we got to look at, well, before they got to actors, looking at director and producers, right? So who is a producer? Who is a director? Is the producer experienced enough to produce this film and carry out this project, right? Very important. Can they actually move the needles in making this thing happen? Like, do people in the industry knows this producer enough for this producer to call in what he needs to call in to make it happen, right? Director, obviously, experience on directing, execution. Every film is execution dependent. So, what are the track records, or what if it's a proof of concept? Do they have a short? That proof of concept has it gone anywhere? Has it gone to HollyShorts and qualified for Oscars? Like these are things we look at, right? So, and then with those two things locked down, then they can go for casting because if those two are in a caliber that the industry believe they can deliver what they're pitching, then they can go get the actor they need at a reasonably priced bracket. That's the thing about independent films is you can't really afford to pay some of the actors their full rates because then that's all your budget or half your budget and you're going to have no film. So you're trying to get the actors at a discount. And the only reason why they would do it is because they really believe in the role they're playing and also they believe the director producer combo can actually deliver this film somewhere, whether it goes to a premiere festival or getting distributed, right? So, and that's how the agent pitch all that. Obviously, the best kind is you can bypass the agencies. Some producers just know people, they just call up, but that's rare. So yeah, those are some of the boxes on that front. And then sales companies. We got to look at the usually the international sales side, right? So international sales company, they will have sales estimate. We look at a sales sheet on where does this film, like this is after all the other stuff, where the number lies. And we usually like to have a couple of territories pre-sold to just verify the sales company is giving us real numbers because the international sales is a murky side of the business. It's just numbers on papers, right? So once those are validated, then we know that company can actually sell and those numbers are actually real. And then we evaluate on what the domestic potential is and then see the overall how much money we had to be putting in on the equity side. And, we like to keep equity exposure as low as possible, which means go find those tax rebates, the pre-sales, the grants, whatever it is, as much as possible on that side, and to keep our equity exposure as low as possible. And then obviously, if you have any kind of distribution talks prior, great. There could be MGs for domestics if it makes sense. Although those are harder to get these days. Yeah, unfortunately, the distribution and side in the U.S. right now is pretty broken. The numbers are just really horrific for domestic. So, I say in the last 2-3 years, we have been looking at just lower and lower budgets. And producers are coping with it, and some of the good ones are able to do that. But I think anybody who's a studio producer, no way, they're not going to be able to cope with the economics of today's reality because you're not going to get those. The revenue in films are just never going to be the same. It's no longer the ages of radio, television, and film. So things just shifted, just how it is. But then a lot of things also got introduced over the last 10, 15 years that's trying to help keep the cost lower, right? Like 4K cameras, lighting systems, all the costs of everything has been post-production costs. Everything has been dropping dramatically for the last decade. So just gotta, be on top of those things and really be smart about how to utilize those things that exist. Obviously, the more you can do yourself, then the cheaper things are as well. The more skill sets you have and find the right people. But yeah, so that's sort of like overall a number of those boxes that need to be checked before we can really seriously talk about putting money into it. Yeah.
You guys want to?
It's very important when you start any project, you got to be crystal clear. Like a lot of people like, oh, I have a project, like let's make the movie. So what is the purpose of making the movie? And a lot of people focus to do the small budget movie. It's very, very hard to sell small budget. So if you make a small budget movie, what's your platform to sell? You cannot go to theatrical. Theatrical is very, very, very tough. And the amount of P&E they spend, you never recoup your money at all. So you have to do your math. And second thing, I always encourage to, the number one is, as he mentioned, producer is the number one person makes the movie better. If they don't know how to make the movie, no matter how good cast and crew you have, they can fuck it up. And most of the time, when somebody comes and tell me producer, the first question I ask, okay, will you be on the set? If they say no, they are not real producers at all, because absolutely they have no idea how to produce a movie if you're not in the set every day. Because it's like you're going a war. It's every day will be a different problem. You need to fix it immediately. If you take a time, that costs you money. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to do your homework before you start making the movie. What's my target? And when you go to the festivals, try to connect with the direct distribution. The only one movie, the very first movie I went through sales company. After that, I directly went to the last movie I distribute under the Silver Lake. We did with the A24 worldwide. The last movie I directly connected with the roadside slash Lionsgate. Roadside did a domestic, Lionsgate doing international. Now I'm connecting with the Fox Searchlight. I'm connecting with the Sony. So you can do that. You don't have to need the salesperson. Wherever you can cut the overhead, you make profit. So if you go to the sales company, they will do the dealing for you. They will take 10%. You have absolutely no idea if the deal is the best for you or if the deal is worse for you.
Right there, second row, classes. Thank you.
Hi. From a filmmaker's perspective, can you guys hear? Uh, it from our perspective, at least, it seems like when you're talking about angel investors or VC, the presumption is because you couldn't get the studios to make it. But I'm wondering if you guys could talk about, from either whether it's a creative freedom point of view or profit participation, of how going this route can be advantageous for filmmakers outside of just, well, Paramount and Lionsgate all said no, so now I'm coming to you.
Yeah. And I mean, I first just actually, if you could hang on to the mic for 1 second, I just want to actually ask you. So, from a filmmaker, because I have a thought on this, but I want to get your head on it too. Why is studio first for you? Why are you thinking in terms of, I want to pitch it, I want the studio on board?
Right. I think it's sort of one-stop shopping of
Yeah.
you go and they're gonna take care of all this other stuff that I don't have to go out and do, and I can go and make.
Are you thinking about how you might lose creative control and back end and all of that stuff that happens?
Well,
Or
that's why I'm asking this
Yeah.
question, because the downside is like profit participation,
Yes.
creative control. So
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'll speak from my perspective, and then you guys kind of probably know this. We're working with filmmakers nonstop, and mostly, like I said, from a donation perspective, because we're donor side, but we also hear about what their distribution and financial strategies, both, right? The pre and then the post side of it. And what their plans are to get additional funding, because you can have both donors and investors depending on what you're doing. The biggest thing that we've been talking about, which I think is really helpful, is this relationship base. So, like, from an investor perspective, they want the film to be commercially viable, just like a studio would. But the biggest thing for them is looking at that risk. There's a lot more, in my opinion, wiggle room when working with VCs and angel investors in terms of the one-stop shop, right? Because you're breaking it down. They want to know it's going to be commercially viable, but they're open because they don't know that field a lot of the time. Like you guys know that field, but a lot of VC funds who are starting are just excited to like get into it. It makes no sense for them. It's the highest risk industry. It doesn't make sense. Most filmmakers don't have business plans, which is like not our fault. We just weren't taught that we needed to have them. We thought it was all art first. And so it's really risky for them to come on board. And so, yes, not only creative control is something that I think is kind of the benefit of working with VCs, but I think they're also going to take a risk on you if they see it's commercially viable. Whereas the studio wants to follow very much a formula they have done. And I think the studio, that television show, does a really good job of showing that because they're like, what is the X, Y, and Z of this? Does it fit in? If not, sorry. But I don't think a lot of the time they're going to work with you like DJ did, where they come back and they go, here's a cut of our film. A lot of the studios now actually will only I've been, for our pitches, will only buy documentaries when they're done. So they expect you to finance them and then they ask you to come in with the final thing and then they see if they can pick it up and get it out there. But from a narrative perspective, it really needs to fit into their formula versus in this kind of finance world with people outside of that industry and not directly a part of it, you have a lot more leeway and freedom, even with like distribution strategy and those numbers and gambling them.
Right. So it's a personal choice, right? Because there's a really good chance that with narrative, you sell it to the studio and then you wave goodbye to it.
You're never probably going to see that money again.
You get your name on the end of it, but you're done with it.
Yeah. Maybe you get your name on it.
Right.
Too, right.
Well, most likely not getting made. That's the thing.
Right.
They'll pay you something and then goodbye, and then
and they own it too.
Yeah, and they own it,
you
and
can't do anything with that idea.
It's really hard. I mean, 85% of film are independently made now. The studio has 12 slots a year. Even the best right now can't even get a slot in those. It's hyper competitive, and they're all over $100 million movies. Yeah, it's more and more. That's why there's more institutional financing on the independent side that didn't happen before because it's needed, because all the deal flow is out of the studio now. It's shifting. So, and as you said, the one-stop shop, that's your producer. That's, as a filmmaker, if you're a director, writer, director, that's your producer. The producer is the one-stop shop for you to make your movie. They're the one that's going to take care of that and find all the other elements and check all the other boxes, right? It's not quite your job as a writer, director to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great question, though, because I think as filmmakers, we're taught you go to a studio, you pitch, and then you're like, well, how do I get the pitch meeting? Well, you need a manager. And then the manager doesn't do anything because you haven't like had anything done. And then, the industry flops. And so I think this is a really interesting perspective to have, is this idea of heading into VC territory, angel investor territory, co-production territory, and then looking into self-distribution options so your distributor doesn't take all of the rest of the percentage you had. Yeah. I feel very passionately about this, as you could tell.
All right. Thank you so much. In the back there. Oh, there's a microphone.
Thank you all so much. This information is amazing. I spoke here yesterday. My name is Tarana Harris Mays on the sports panel. I'm directing my first film about professional football based on my dad's story. I have the access, attached an Oscar nominated narrator, have a fiscal sponsor, but. So I guess a two-part question. Do you see what good viable models do you see for financing documentary? One, is it a commission? Is it branded? What is working right now? Because it's changed 15 times since I started this film 5 years ago. And then two, if what do you want to see in a package from somebody like me in terms of I need financing to finish this? Just those are my two-part questions.
Do you want to start a package or, I'm not a package girl.
I'm not sure about documentary packaging. It's very hard for a document.
Not in a package, because I don't have a package other than what I mentioned to you. But what do you want to see on paper about the film?
Basically, what should you present to them?
What should you present? Sorry, double meaning of packaging there.
After finishing the movie or before starting the movie?
To potentially work with you to get financing.
Oh, okay. So you need to break down. Right now, you have to forget about theatrical. Okay. So if you go to Hulu, nobody talks about output deal. Nobody knows what is output deal. So output deal is if you can go to minimum theatrical Let's say if you go to 500 theaters, they'll give you $2 million output deal, irrespective of what movie it does in theaters. Even if it's a disaster, you get your 2 million. Domestic. That's called output deal. So you need to figure out how do I get the output deal domestic and international. And domestic is very hard, but if you get some domestic release, that will elevate your international market too. So you don't have to market heavily in international. If it does a little bit, there is a value in domestic, you can sell more in international. So if you're only focusing on not theatrical, on domestic digital platform, when you go to the international, don't you can give to Lionsgate to do the entire digital and worldwide, you get more money. Or you can break down, you can do one Latino community. I sold only Latino community to Netflix, European community to Amazon. So that way, if you break it down, you make more money than worldwide. You go to one person, do everything. Maybe you don't get that much money. So you really have to do your homework. What money I try to recoup internationally? How do I break it? So you can break it to Latino community is very huge now. It's nobody know about it. Nobody's tapping that market. It's 18 phenomenal countries. Then you have Europe, then you have the Asia. So you break it down, then you do the number, then you put it on the paper.
Anything to add as far as, especially with
Yeah.
documentary that seems like it might also be a little more American based if it's American football?
Okay.
Yeah, so
I mean,
You can
I mean,
see what you have to.
well, I
maybe you're gonna say
actually
what you're gonna say.
I came from the unscripted world initially, so it's has shifted a lot. It's always changing, but I mean, I think you're lucky that you're doing sports. Sports and music are the only two type of docs right now that are
Yes.
getting bought. Everything
Sports,
else,
yeah.
everything else is just it's a mess right now out there. But couple ways. There's producers, very important. Editors, very important. Those are two things that you need experience roles on those. And there's production companies out there, if you want to go through that route, to pitch to them, and they do development with you, and or possibly funding as well. That basically there are production companies out there that has the deals with distribution companies that they will distribute the stuff that's coming out of those production company, right? Obviously, the process, you might lose some creative control in that process because they're developing it, they're putting their money and effort into it. But usually they want to be in the same page as the original creators and all that stuff. So, so that's one route. The other one is independent financing. You go find the monies, bootstrap or like go through them, the physical sponsors, getting donations, getting all these things together, and organization aligns with your goal of what you're doing, and obviously know where you want to distribute this, right? What quality, so you can determine the budget and how much, is this going to be a for what kind of streaming, right? Is this a Tubi thing or is this a Netflix thing, right? So figure that out and then give you what budget range you have to like accommodate to get that done, and then the other thing is what he mentioned with international territories, right? You could pre-sell to a few territories that might have audience that gravitates towards whatever your subject matter, whatever is involved in there, and get MGs from those territory pre-sell those, and then you can get a loan against the pre-sale, which goes into your production. And obviously it's always good for domestic wise, distribution wise, always good to talk to people earlier, distribution companies, get the dialogue going, be on their radar. They could give you a yay or nay, right? Like they're just like, no, this is not something we ever would do. Then that's not going to go there. So, but yeah, it's never hard to get distribution talks starting to just flow things around. Yeah.
But digitally, everybody think about domestic, like, let me go to Netflix, let me go to Amazon, let me go to Hulu. But there are other platforms really good. You can go to Bravo, you can go to Roku. Roku is doing really good.
Yeah. Don't underestimate Mubi.
Yeah, exactly.
They just bought bought out Cannes. Like they spent so much more money than anyone else at Cannes because a lot of these independent streamers are trying to get market share. And so it might be a really good opportunity if you have an Oscar nominated narrator that they want that attached. They want a name like that. And so don't underestimate those streamers. There's a few things quickly I'll say about this because I think with documentary right now, if you're independently financing it, you need about 3 business plans, right? And you need to explore each avenue pretty significant, like pretty comprehensively. One of them is I think you should have at least 30% of your budget through fiscal sponsorship. So when you're going to get loans or you're going to an independent production company or you're going to a VC, you can show people believe in this story. I have people who have already given me money. It's a less of a risk for them to get involved because they see there's interest there. That's one route, but I would use your fiscal sponsor to try and get like 30% of your budget. Second thing for documentary, unfortunately, keep your budget below 1 million. 100% do not go above 1 million. There is no financing right now for any documentaries. No distributor will pick it up. No studio will pick it up because it won't make them money back. Ideally, try to keep it under 700,000 because I think 1 million was like 3 years ago. That was like the target. They were like, keep it below 1 million. I think right now it's 700,000. That's what I would do. I also, because it's sports related, sports is getting picked up more than anything else. Music too, but music you really have to have like it's this famous band and they're coming out of retirement and like this is all this found footage I have. But like sports, you have a lot more. We have 1 minute. Thanks, Eduardo. Just thought I'd embarrass him. But the biggest thing with sports is there's so many universities in the state that have in the states that have endowments that have very rich ultra high net worth or high net worth individuals that love sports and love like legacy teams and love especially American football. There's so much money in that. If you can tap into the donor network for those endowments and then make relationships with the donors that give to those endowments, that's the need. That's like the answer, I think. The biggest thing with the producer thing is what I agree with. You got to attach a producer that has just had a success with a sports documentary, because not only are people who, ultra high net worth individuals who like sports going to get hooked because it's about their favorite sport, but they're also going to get hooked because they're like, I really enjoyed that sports doc and it's going to probably be exactly like that. So without having to shoot it, you're trying to paint a picture for people to get invested in. There's also, if you have talent attached and they are willing to come on, this is like very controversial, but willing to come on as a producer. There is a platform called, which everyone may hate on this panel, called Republic that has started up. Republic does equity. Yeah, right. I know. I saw the face. They do equity. It's a newer platform. I haven't vetted it myself, so I think do your own research. And I would actually love to hear your perspective on this. They do equity financing, like crowdfunding, crowdsourcing equity financing so people can go for a minimum of $100 and get a specific amount of equity back. And so it's crowdsourcing the equity side, but it really only works if you're like Robert Rodriguez or like a huge like Lionel Messi is like trying to start a production company or like someone. So you'd really have to have someone that's willing to be forward facing, or else it's kind of, they take, I think, a pretty big cut. That's one of the things. Those are like the 2 main routes. But documentary is really tough. You're going to have to race to the bottom, but just make sure that you can get at least, I would say 30% of your budget through fiscal sponsorship, donors. And the last thing, and I know we have 10 seconds left, is really think about it. I talked a lot about risk, right? Like how not risky can I make myself to people to invest in, right? But there's also something you have to think about. And that is the people that have money will probably prefer to write it off as a loss on their taxes than donate to your movie. So they will rather come on as an investor that they can then claim a loss on their taxes because the government values your donation not 1 to 1, but sometimes 0.6 to 1 cent or 0.7 to 1 cent. So you really want to be kind of cautious on how you're pitching to certain investors, because people who are ultra high net worth or high net worth, most of the time will just rather have a loss on their taxes because it's a tax write-off anyway. And then people who are probably like middle to high net worth are more willing to donate because they don't have as much to write off in the same way as a loss that can go over multiple years. And you can look into like, I not for really doc, but Section 181 is just like an interesting idea to get your head around. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to add quickly. Goes for documentary and narrative as an interesting way to finance, which I heard recently somebody people doing this. Feels very smart and needs some digging around. Obviously, it's basically if your story or whatever you're telling has to do with a certain neighborhood, a certain city, something very related to the culture or the good of the city or promoting the city or people something. What they do, I have people done this. Basically, they will go talk to the Chamber of Commerce at the city and explain to them, hey, I'm doing something that's very related to this as a Philly. It's something that's very about the heart and soul of it. A lot of the city has big corporations that have headquarters within these cities, and all the corporation has a foundation arm that they're obligated to fund the community-based projects in the arts and all these things. But the Chamber of Commerce would be to direct you with those get those things from those corporate foundations
Exactly. Yeah.
that can go into a fiscal
Exactly.
donation. The foundation has a charitable thing.
100%.
So it's a charity thing to a charity
And
thing.
they're not
and you get the money.
advertised as film.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. So it's advertised as supporting the community. That's why when we say think outside of the box, don't just Google, which is very like you want to do it, but don't just Google like film grants. Everyone's applying to the same film grant. There's like maybe 10 film grants that people actually get rewarded out of 10,000 submissions.
Yeah.
So when you go this route instead, and you may have to change your story, you may have to have a beeline that talks about where this person came from and the football was born in here, and but like at the end of the day, use that as a marketing tool as well to get people invested.
Because the foundations on the corporate foundations, it's a basically entity they set up to shelter their tax.
Yes.
So they're obligated to donate at least 5% per year out of that tax sheltering mechanism.
They have to spend that money,
or else they can't maintain the foundation status. So it's basically about how you can hook up with that and access to it. Yeah.
And make sure you're always writing. When you're writing to people like that, make sure you are reading their about and their mission statement and their vision statement, and everything that you are saying to them is a mission statement read back to them in your form, because that's how they literally approve with their board and give a tick, is because it supports their mission.
All right. Well, so I had promised you guys within an hour, and now you would know everything you need to know in order to get my. I don't know if that's true, but I do know you guys got in within a very fast hour so much information. So appreciative of you guys. A couple of whom I didn't want to lead with this. A couple of them jumped in the last second and brought their best selves to all of you. So if you'd be so kind, first a round of applause for our fabulous panelists. A wee bit of housekeeping, just letting you know, schedule 2:15. We have Navigating the Award Season from Oscar and BAFTA winners right here. 2:30, if you can make that long walk to the theater, go down a level. It's the rom-com block. Maybe one or two of you even have films in that. At 4:45, if you can handle looking at me again, I am doing a panel, First Steps, Best Steps, Next Steps in Animation with 5 also wonderful panelists. And then around that time, if you can't handle more of me, go to documentary block over at the theater on the 3rd floor. So you've got all sorts of fantastic stuff to do with your past today.
Yeah.
Where could they follow you guys? Socials, whatever you're comfortable sharing, of course.
Sure. You can look us up at cinematographyforactors.com for more information on that. Haley also printed out some fiscal sponsorship handbooks that you can take with you. We have a few of them.
I have 10.
30 minutes to get here. Okay, so we have 10, and then that's available online. We will also be in the theater lobby today, 2 to 6, doing interviews, so you can come chat with us if you have any questions further. But just reach contact at cinematographyforactors.com, and people will pass it through to us. But
Cinematography
we're here
for actors everywhere. Instagram.
Everything. We're just happy to support filmmakers and make sure that they are as smart in business as they are as creative. So thanks.
We're on Instagram. I don't know what our handle is. I think it's pretty sure it's Giant Leap Media. Yeah, Giant Leap Media, and
thank you.
and IMDb. There's our contact thing there. We don't take unsolicited scripts, so that's one thing that I had to put out there. But for any advice and other things, yes, I'm also on Instagram myself. So Space DJ1.
All right.
Yeah, Instagram Parker Rufus, or if you have IMDb Pro, you have my contact info.
Cool. And
Great.
if for some reason you want to hunt me down, Count Eric Connor, my very formal title over at Instagram. But also, speaking of grants, I, as mentioned, part of the Burbank Cultural Arts Commission, burbankarts.com, and we actually do give out community arts grants. Now, we haven't done film yet, but it's a relatively new program. We've given out about $100,000 over 2 years. So definitely follow us. We have another submission coming up on the calendar in about probably a couple months. So if you're, especially if you're local to Burbank, though it's not exclusive, Burbank, yeah, 818, Magnolia Park, baby. Yeah, definitely follow us because you might have a project that actually, and really, I'd say maybe one of the biggest take homes is the idea of like there are grants out there, and the film ones sometimes can be very difficult to get. But then you look beyond that. You look at where your project overlaps with not just cinema, but rather like does it speak to the a certain community. I got I guess it was an award when I was a student because I did a project that dealt with science. So the Sloan Foundation. So yeah, there are grants out there. I think it's just being a little creative, but also when you know your project and you know yourself and your connection to it, it does help this whole process of finding the stuff that really fits you and fits your project. So I'm sure there's more to talk about. I don't know if they'll be here or not. Don't be weird, but you could come say hi to us. Guys, thank you so much. And again, thank you, all four of you, especially jumping in class second. My God. You guys are fantastic. And enjoy the rest of the festival, guys. Have fun at HollyShorts.
One more round of applause for our panel, everybody. That was Accessing Institutional Finance with Eric Connor and our panel. Now, our panel will be available for questions.